day, everyone, and welcome to the first, official deep dive episode of Unapologetic, Unfiltered, and Unbothered. I know we've been having fun with Shit Talk Fridays, but I told you guys, I promised you guys a deep dive, so here we go. We're gonna go into the deep dive. So, guys, here's the truth of the matter. I have gone round and round the mulberry bush about what I wanted the first episode to be. There was a point in time when I first launched the podcast, there's a lot of chatter about Carmelo Anthony, and people were saying that he was unfairly sentenced or something. So I thought that was going to be my first episode. Well, actually, even before that, if you're over here from my other podcast, Cat Explores, I'm into travel and tourism. I was a tourism director for two small cities in Texas. And so it's kind of my bag. And honestly, one of the things that kind of made me leapfrog to this podcast was I only talk about travel over there, right? And my background is politics, political science, and international studies. And there's so much going on in the world, honestly, no matter what side you're on politically, that I just wanted a space to talk about it, and I didn't want to conflate it with my travel podcast. I've said this a time or three. There's a travel podcaster that I follow, and she throws everything at the wall. And honestly, it's quite exhausting. I just want to talk about the beautiful places that I've been, the beautiful places that I've seen, that you've seen, and talk about that. And honestly, full transparency, I did do I was racially profiled when I went to Naples, and I talked about it a little bit on my travel podcast because that was actually something that happened while I was traveling. So it deserved a mention. I'll probably go into a much deeper dive about it over here, but this is why this podcast exists. And the thing is about her podcast, that's great. I'm sure people love her podcast and love her travel stuff and love that she throws everything in the kitchen sink and would travel. But for me, it's not what I want to do. But I also want to focus on kind of my first love, which was politics. And it's not going to be all political, obviously, but it'll just be the other things that I don't want to conflate with my travel podcast. So, y'all, listen. So, even before that, the Carmelo Anthony thing, I was just thinking about, how this administration has kind of ruined travel and tourism internationally. I mean, when Vegas loses money on travel and tourism, it's bad. And I forgot how many billions of dollars with a B that Vegas has lost. And travel and tourism is still important to me, so I can still keep my finger on the pulse of it. So let me run down, guys, all the things I was going to talk about. So that was supposed to be my first one. And then when the Democrats released their playbook about the 2024 election, um, I went down a deep dive with that. And so I was like, that was going to be my topic because America clearly has a woman problem. Why is America the only industrialized nation that hasn't had a female leader? But we'll talk about that. So I circled around to that for a little bit. And then I randomly was thinking about just the angry black woman trope that's out there. And so I scripted a whole episode about that. I did a deep dive, went down a rabbit hole about that and how if a black woman defends herself in any kind of way, it's viewed as she's angry, but white women can do it. Yeah, guys, I mean, we're going to talk about it. Like I said, if you're over here from Cat Explores, this ain't that cat. This is Katrina. And so we go into deep dives and we talk about these other things. And honestly, guys, I just not in an arrogant way or anything like that. I just want to make the world a better place, right? One of the things that I've honestly learned in my travels and just in life in general with meeting different types of people, I think you could tell I'm kind of a people-y person, but we honestly are more alike than we are different. If you talk to people, we all basically want the same things, right? We want to live our best life. We want to be able to take care of ourselves. We want our parents to be healthy and live long lives. If you have children, you want your children to turn out great. As you know, I'm child free, but I have a little niece and she'll be 5 in a couple weeks. And you know what? I want her to have the best life that she could possibly have. I love her. I mean, she is a child, but I love the way she looks at the world and how she navigates the world. And I hope she always has that kind of experience and that spirit. So this is how it all started, guys. But the topic that I'm actually going to talk about today is, which really got me thinking, was Dr. El-Sayed's win in Michigan, right? and how the Republicans, or MAGA, because I think there's a difference between Republicans and MAGA, and maybe that's a separate conversation for a different day. But the MAGA folks are out here calling him a communist and saying all these things. And so that really got me to thinking. And I'm a lifelong learner. I like to learn. And so this whole thing started off as just me wanting to understand what a democratic socialist was versus communism. And so, guys, here's today's episode: Weaponizing Names, Abdul El-Sayed, the Red Scare, and the Desperate Establishment. We're going to get into it, guys. So let's talk about this playbook. And so each and every time a candidate steps up and actually threatens the establishment machine, they pull out the exact same dusty, lazy scare tactics. I mean, look at what happened when Abdul El-Sayed won his primary in Michigan. Right on cue, the political establishment started screaming communist and painting a Michigan born first generation American as a dangerous outsider. Does that sound familiar to y'all? It should, because it's the exact same script they used to weaponize Barack Hussein Obama's name. But here's the thing: both of those men owned it. They said, yep, that's my name. So it got me to stop and think, why do we get the political system and the politicians that we get? Because the system relies on people staying uninformed. So you know what? Let's go down the rabbit hole. So, step one, the vocabulary debate: democratic socialism versus communism. What is the actual difference between a democratic socialist and a communist? Do y'all know? Because I hate to admit it, that even though I'm a political scientist, I didn't know. So I had to go research it. So if you open a textbook, communism is a totalitarian, single party control, zero free market, historical state force. Democratic socialism, you keep your constitutional democracy, you keep your free elections, but you use the law to heavily regulate corporations and build public programs like healthcare and housing. And guess what, guys? People, when Social Security first came out, people didn't like that either, but now threaten to take away Social Security. Honey, those boomers and up will have your lunch. But worlds apart, right? But watch how it plays out on cable news. The anchors aren't even the ones doing the heavy lifting. They bring on guests to drop the C word. And then the anchors just sit there like bobbleheads nodding, letting them conflate the terms on live TV without uttering a single correction. They let the guests run the bait and switch so they can calmly say, we report both sides, while the fear mongering does their job. So let's move from definitions to the media's lies. All right. So guess what? You know the actual definitions. A textbook will tell you communism and democratic socialism are worlds apart. But here's where we go down the rabbit hole. The corporate media doesn't care about textbooks. They're running a massive bait and switch. Look at how they spent the money to take down Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. Well, it ain't the media, actually, honey. That was APAC. And they spent $60 million and that man still won. You look at a win like that, dominating a primary despite tens of millions of outside spending trying to crush him. And what's hilarious, if you can even call it that, is that El-Sayed isn't even running on some radical communist manifesto. He's out here talking about regulated capitalist. Yet the establishment slaps him with the communist label anyway. He ain't even a democratic socialist, y'all. He just said that a time or three. Why? Because the establishment doesn't actually care about economic textbook definitions. They don't hate an ideology. They hate change. They hate anything that looks different, sounds different, or even threatens their power grip. And here's the truth of the matter. They know most voters aren't informed. They're not going to do the heavy lifting to find out about their candidates. So they rely on that. They rely on the misinformation. So we're going to say they call a guy who's literally a regulated capitalist a communist because they're afraid of anyone who looks and sounds different. And why are they so afraid? Because look at the actual people holding on to power in Washington. Y'all, let's make this shit make sense. The median age of an American citizen is roughly 39 years old. Would you like to know what the average age of a U.S. Senator is? I'll tell you. It's 66 years old. I'm 47. And let's be real. It's not that I can't relate to them. Hell, they can't relate to me. When you've got leaders who have been sitting in the exact same Senate chair for 30 or 40 years, they don't know your struggle. They don't know my struggle. And they're completely detached from what it actually feels like to pay for rent, groceries, and if you have children, small children, childcare right now. They've turned public service into a lifetime corporate insurance policy. So when the talking heads on cable news act like they're shocked that an unconventional candidate won, let me tell you something. It ain't a surprise. It's a rational, calculated gamble by a population that's completely exhausted by an aging corporate-backed establishment. It's the same anti-establishment frustration that pushed voters toward change in the past presidential cycles. Sure, part of that was the wave that put Barack Obama into office. But let's not forget, back in '08, he was running against Hillary Clinton. And at the end of the day, America still had to choose between a man and a woman. And they went with the man. See, this is why I say America has a woman problem. And that's not to say that Barack Obama wasn't qualified. He absolutely was. But when put up even against an African American man, they went with the black guy, which is fine. I like Obama. We'll talk about that a little bit later too. But again, it's a patriarchal society. They went with the man over the woman. And it's the same deep-seated, and let me pause. And even though she herself at the time really was a political establishment, obviously, yes, her husband was the president. So she's kind of like political establishment. And guess what? America at that time still chose to take a chance on the new guy, right? And it's the same deep-seated exhaustion why the anti-establishment urge is such a huge part of why Donald Trump won later on. But that's also, y'all, a part of the America has a woman problem. Do y'all see where I'm going with this? It's six in one hand, half a dozen in the other of the outsider front, even if we have to be honest with the fact that America still has a major woman problem. But here's the thing, guys. I don't really think it's Republican versus Democrat anymore. I think it's, corporate establishment versus populism. Like, people want change. They're not seeing change. They're not seeing what they want. A lot of these people don't, a lot of these politicians don't have your best interest at heart. So people are really desperate, y'all, for a system that actually works, and they're willing to try anything different. The establishment is using old scare tactics. They're screaming communism. They're calling him an outsider. They're saying this. I heard somebody say the other day, I can't remember if it was, I think it was about Zoran. No, it wasn't about Zoran Mandami. It was about El-Sayed. That, like, if he runs for president, he's going to have all your daughters wearing burqas. I mean, they're using fear, y'all, to propagate. And God, Jesus, let's not even talk about the things that they're saying about Zoran Mandami. But that's what they're using. And you know what, guys? We need to be smarter than to let those old scare tactics scare us. And we need to let them know that that doesn't work, that no longer works for us anymore. And you can see it across the political spectrum. All these new fresh meat, fresh blood candidates are winning. They're winning the primaries. They're booting the old people out. And that's a great thing. I don't think change is a bad thing. But when people are drowning, they don't care about the labels on the life vest. They don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. They just want to be saved. And y'all, this was the first episode of Unapologetic, Unfiltered, Unbothered. Thank you guys so much for joining in. I hope you guys got a lot out of this episode. It was a little bit shorter than I thought it was going to be, but that's okay. We got to the brass tacks and the meat and potatoes of it all. Tell me what you think in the comments. We're here to have an intellectual conversation. We don't name call, we don't insult, but let's just have a conversation. But over here at Unapologetic, Unfiltered, Unbothered, we deal with real talk, no fluff, and no excuses, babes. I will see y'all the next time.